Hi, I'm Mark Mancini with VRBO Outstanding. This week's episode, even though the hurricane is still going on and we have a tidal surge for the next 48 hours, we're going to talk about post-hurricane cleanup. And if you stay tuned to the very end, we have some important information about flood zones that you need to hear about. So stay tuned. The first thing I want to mention, if you have a coastal home, especially one that's on the water, salt away, which you can get at your West Marine or Amazon, probably even Walmart. Boaters use this to get the salt off of their boats, the salt deposits. Because what's going to happen is the ocean water is going to splash onto your home and you can wash it with water, but this stuff really does a great job. Now, if you Google real well, you'll find out what chemical is in here, and you'll save a lot of money buying just the generic chemical that's used. But it's safe for the environment, and it does a great job with getting the salt off of your windows, your railings. You also want to get it put on all of your AC units. You want to wash all the AC units off, your condenser and so forth, your pool heater, your pool equipment. Get everything. I would even put it in the outside of the building. Hose everything down with salt away, and your applicator, which attaches to your hose and sprays it on, does a great job with getting all the salt debris off. So the water receded quite a bit. It used to be a completely filled up lake over here, so to speak. This was all water. This has started really dissipating quite a bit more than I thought. We didn't get a lot of rain last night. We got a huge tidal surge, and like I said, this hurricane is not over. We've got a tidal surge for the next 48 hours. And we're going to show you that tidal surge and what it did in just a minute. But let's talk about the cleanup and what I'll be planning to do shortly. What's interesting is you'll see debris, a lot of coconuts on the ground. Stuff like this that washes in from the ocean, bottom of someone's shoe. So I have a lot of debris cleanup and a lot of coconuts on the ground. We've got plastic cups here on the ground. This is all stuff that is floated around in the ocean and kicked up. Now, if you remember from my other video, this water level was up to here. These sandbags did a hell of a job keeping the water out of the garage. We could have also used the DAP peel and stick, or peel and seal. I keep on messing that up. Peel and seal by DAP to really seal the door in. But I was just concerned with the amount of water, the pressure, it may not have held. So the sandbags really held. So we're gonna take a look at the Tiki. Now, one thing you'll note, I used artificial thatch. This cost about 5 times as much as the real thing, but everything has stayed intact, which is great. So the thatch and the Tiki is in good shape. What we noticed though, I had the beach cleaned up without any kind of seaweed on it whatsoever. It was a beautiful beach because we have a wedding next week. But the water came up on this side of the Tiki all the way up to here and left seaweed everywhere and debris. This is your pill bottles that get washed up on the shore. So all this seaweed came up on the beach last night. The kayak rack is loaded up with seaweed, but it's still in place. Jeff over at River Welding did a great job. I concreted it into the sand. It's in great shape. You've got a puddle over here because that's the low-lying part of the beach. Again, there's a storm surge coming in. We still have probably 5 more feet of water coming in. The fence that we put in this summer, we lost some of the slats, and it looks like some of it buckled under. We've got some damage to a brand new $15,000 fence, which I'm not real happy about. I'll be cleaning up a lot of seaweed, as you can see here. More debris. And one thing I want you to note is the power of water. You really don't realize the power of water until you see things like this. all of these rocks, see these big boulders over here? All of these big rocks used to butt up against the concrete pad. You have probably 70, 100-pound boulders that were moved 30 feet. Now, if you think of the force for the water to move a 50 or 70-pound boulder 30 feet, that's what happened here last night. You'll notice over here, all the rocks that washed up onto the beach. This is going to be me shoveling up all these rocks. There's plenty of rocks. You'll see again, all this sand. This concrete pad was level with the sand. All this sand, we lost probably 3 truckfuls worth of sand. We're gonna need 3 truckfuls worth of sand. Now here's the thing that makes me sick to my stomach. Our pool is normally very pretty, but right now it's yoo-hoo color. We're filling up the pool because we want to fill it up. We want to get rid of some of the debris and brown water and replace it with clean water. So we're going to be going through a lot of water to clean it up for the incoming guest. Again, you'll notice all the seaweed up above here. Last night, the force was so strong, the water was hitting the front of the pool and the waves were coming all the way over, way past the other end of the pool. So that wave hit and tossed a ton of water all the way over, way past the pool. Remember how I told you things can change rather quickly? They did. From what I understand, this is a Cat 4, maybe in some areas a Cat 5 hurricane. I said my wife and I don't stay for Cat 4 and Cat 5 hurricanes. We stayed in a 60-year-old home. And this 60-year-old home kept us safe. I had no fear about anything in that house. It was built very well 60 years ago. Thankfully, it's elevated, but it was loud. So last night around 10:30, we looked out and saw the outdoor furniture by the Lone Palm getting a brunt of the damage, so we had to move it in. We waited a little late for that. That was my fault. I didn't think it was going to get that high and that bad. But again, things got hairy real quickly. This was a pain in the butt carrying us in because these were like kites. It was very dangerous carrying them in. The pillows, you're grabbing the pillows and cushions and they're flying everywhere. It was difficult. So definitely we should have put this in earlier, sooner than later. I'm glad we moved the kayaks up this far. This was my wife's idea because those definitely would have floated away. I didn't think it was going to come up that high. You know, we had some damage, that's for sure. But let's talk about how you're going to repair all this. Now, in our previous episode, we said it's okay to spend 5 to 10 minutes just to stop and cry. Let it out. That's fine. There's no shame in that. But then after that 10 minutes is up, get your ass back to work, get things fixed. You have to make sure you take initiative. Now, one of the things I always stress doing is acting quickly. So when I saw the beach this morning, I reached out to my local guy who does grading and sand. And I said, Nate, I need sand, I need grading. I have a wedding, I have guests coming in Saturday. I have a wedding on Tuesday. He squeezed me in for Friday. I already have it lined up, okay? I'm gonna have some landscapers helping me out with the seaweed, getting the seaweed removed. We'll take care of all this today after the storm subsides a little bit more. But again, I'm not sure, it may be tomorrow. This has been a drawn out storm. It's lasted 3 days. So remember, if you're going to stay, you have to make sure you have a backup plan. We just came from our other house in Alamorada, heart of Morada. And that house is on the bayside. And it's in a small 8-home development and they're individually detached homes. So it sits right there in the middle and it was safe. I mean, it had a lot of water in the pool. The paddle board fell over, but everything was safe. That was our backup plan, just to go there. I talked to some people who stayed there last night. They said it was loud and windy, but they were fine. So always have a backup plan. Never stay if you think anything's unsafe. Now the first part of your repair process is to assess the situation. Just like you saw me do, walk around and check everything out. You want to assess and see exactly what's wrong. You want to know everything that's wrong. Walk to your whole property, okay? Make a mental note, write it on paper, voice dictation on your phone if you have to. But note everything that's wrong. So first, assess. Make sure you use care. If there's any electricity, you want to make sure that if there's a live wire anywhere, you don't go near it, obviously. Now the second thing you want to do is you want to prioritize and triage. So for instance, let's say there was a water spigot that broke, and there was water spewing out and causing your water bill to go high. That's a priority. Anything that can cause more damage is a top priority. Aesthetics are low priority. So always make sure you address the issue. So on our issue, the first thing for me was our lovely pool. I already had my pool guy out here 10 o'clock this morning. Richard came out, he started putting chemicals in the pool, running his magic, adding more water to it. He's gonna be back probably later today or tomorrow. That was my priority, was the pool. Second thing is the beach. I already made the phone call to Nate, and the grading, that's gonna be done. So my incoming guests won't be disturbed in any way. They'll be pleasantly surprised at what happened. I also went to West Marine for the aesthetic part, got my salt away. And as you can see here, we have all kinds of glass around the whole upper part of the house. This is all salt, okay? Now I can try to hose this down with water. It's not gonna do a whole lot of good. Salt away is gonna do a great job of that. I'm also gonna make sure I address my AC units, all my pool equipment. I'm gonna hose it down with salt away, okay? I'm gonna do an inventory of anything I may have lost, but so far, again, a lot of it just seems to be landscaping and beach erosion. So remember, with the cleanup, another thing you're gonna want to have is a leaf blower. Try not to get the cheap ones, get the backpack ones. You can get them for about $2.50. If you have beachfront, even if you don't have beachfront, all the debris that's gonna fall around, those leaf blowers work amazing. You can clean up an area pretty darn quickly. I'm gonna use it to help smooth out the sand once it dries out. I'm gonna pitchfork all that seaweed. If water got into the house, again, this is something we need to touch on, and I have a whole section in my course at VRB Outstanding on exactly how to take care of hurricane issues. Now this is concrete block. I don't have to worry about anything if we get a couple feet of water here. But my old house, if we had a couple feet of water like we had with Hurricane Matthew, we'd have to cut, usually at 4 feet, the sheetrock and take all that sheetrock out, and you want to air it out and let it dry for about a week. So one of the most important things with a hurricane and post-hurricane cleanup is getting a dumpster as quickly as possible, because they're going to be in complete demand. So that hurricane is going to cause people to reach out to the dumpster people right away. You need to be on top of that list, because when you cut that sheetrock, you need to get that sheetrock, toss it in that dumpster, and let them haul it out before the mold builds up. Once you open that sheetrock up, this whole area needs to stay dry for at least a week. Then you're gonna get some spray cans and dilute some bleach, and you're gonna spray all that wood with bleach and make sure mold doesn't come back. Now, once you spray it with bleach, let it sit for a day or two, let it completely dry, and then you can go ahead and put back your insulation and re-sheetrock. And again, in my course, we have a couple tricks with how to get operational as quickly as possible. When Hurricane Matthew came, we lost a couple bookings that happened in October. We lost our October bookings, and I think 1 week in November. We had a Thanksgiving booking. Now, Thanksgiving week, we charge a premium for. Not to mention, they already had their plane flights booked. They had people flying in from 4 different states. I didn't want to mess up their Thanksgiving. We busted hump. We worked long days, and I'll tell you, we worked long nights. My wife can tell you, I was really unruly. I was not myself, but I had to get it done, and I focused on it. And within 3 or 4 weeks, we got the whole basement redone. I learned a couple tricks. One thing also, when a hurricane comes, all of your cabinetry is pressboard and wood. You're gonna have to replace all of that. So again, aside from your sheetrock you're gonna have to cut, all of your cabinets are gonna have to be replaced. Your sofas may have to be replaced. Anything low to the ground, your appliances, your stove, your refrigerator, the condensers and all the working parts of the motor and so forth are down at the bottom, because that's where you want the weight. Well, that's where the motor is, and that's where the water is going to be, and that's where everything's going to go bad. One last thing about your outside area is, if you have a hot tub, those motors are also near the bottom. Water comes up, those motors are going to get wet, and those hot tubs are going to have issues. You're going to have to replace motors. Now, I mentioned talking about hurricane zones, so we're going to go over this one more time. We talked about it in a previous video. The three main zones in a coastal community are VE, AE, and X. VE does not stand for very elevated. VE is the worst. You are ground level, and if a hurricane comes, you are getting water. So when you start to look for coastal properties, just remember, stay away from VE if at all possible, okay? Part of our property is VE, but also a lot more of it too is AE. AE is a step up. You'll see AE6, AE8, AE10. Those are different level, connotations, but AE is a higher level. It's a little bit safer. Put it this way, it's not safe, but it's not VE. VE is horrible. Finally is X. X, you're in pretty good shape. If a hurricane comes, even a Cat 5, you're probably gonna be okay, You're not gonna flood. X happens two different ways. You either build up like our neighbor did, built up with dirt about 10 feet up, and then built a home on top of the 10 feet of dirt. That will get your elevation up, and that's a smart thing to do if you're building from scratch. Another way you can get X property is if you're lucky. You're looking around and you find an area where the topography has changed and there's maybe a natural buildup and it's elevated. So for instance, Overseas Highway here, that's an X zone. Now that was built up by man, but some of the businesses on there are in that X-rated zone. Some of them even built them up even higher so they don't flood. So always look at your zones, know your zones. Know that if you're in VE, you're paying a lot in flood insurance. AE, not so much. X, really not too much. One more thing too I gotta throw at you there is hurricane insurance. If you're financing your home, you have to have hurricane insurance, and you're probably gonna want you to have wind and hail insurance. Do your math, okay? Wind and hail often does not make sense if you own your property outright. We do not carry wind and hail in any of our properties. It's just not financially viable. Between the deductible, what they cover, and the cost of the insurance, if you do the math on it, basically you can replace your roof every 4 years for the price of what you pay with wind and hail. Finally, hurricane insurance. I'm gonna have to move, I think, because the wind might be bothering the microphone. Hurricane insurance, again, you're gonna have to have if you own your home, if you finance your home, but if you own your home, hurricane insurance is optional. What I want you to do is go through a hurricane and see exactly what FEMA is gonna pay you for hurricane damage. One thing you'll find out is that they don't pay much, okay? So for instance, they'll pay you $75 to paint a room. The paint and the brushes, I don't think that alone is 75 bucks, never mind the labor cost, okay? So do the math, see if it works for you. For our properties, we choose to self-insure and we'll take care of the damages on our own cost. The hurricane insurance only covers what's inside the home. It doesn't cover your pool, doesn't cover your hot tub, doesn't cover your beach, doesn't cover your dock, doesn't cover anything outside. If you have an outside refrigerator outside of your home by your pool, like I've had in properties, doesn't cover that. Hurricane insurance is really gonna be something you need to go through a hurricane, see what they pay, do the math, and see if it's right for you. Best recommendation I can make. So once again, stay safe, and remember to hit the like and subscribe button below. Also, I would love to hear your comments about anything I may have missed or anything that you may want to share with our audience. And again, if you want to be VRB outstanding, you got to hunker down after a hurricane and get back on your feet and start renting again. We'll see you next week.